In this age of visual culture, what is a web page without images? Boring, right? So pictures and images make everything more interesting and engaging. So here is the most basic image tag that we will use whenever we'll put images in our websites. So the image tag has several attributes, out of which only SRC or source and alt are required. So the rest are useful but optional attributes. So remember, SRC and alt are required. So the SRC attribute or the source attribute from the image tag tells us where to fetch the image from. So there are two different types of URLs you can give for source. So first is the path to an image file within your website. So this is an example code for that. Now, and another one is the path to an image file that resides elsewhere on the web, or the image is from another website. So this is an example code for that. So the type of image file format, like JPEG or PNG or etc., you should use does not depend on the image element in HTML5, but on the browser that renders the content. So some formats like PNG, JPEG, GIF, and BMP are widely supported by browsers. So they are recommended when using images in your website. So here is a list of things to keep in mind when using the source attribute. First is that do not include spaces in your image path. So here's an example of that. So in the source attribute, so as you can see here, there's no spaces here. So do not use any spaces. And the second one is make sure your image path matches the capitalization of the actual path. So if you save your image in your assets, in your file, so whatever the spelling or the capitalization of that source image should match the capitalization of the actual path as well. So your image directory in your web project might be like this, but your path may say like this with lowercase I, so missing the capitalization I. So they did not match. So mismatch capitalization might work in some places, but not all. So recommended practice is that use lowercase for all directories, file names, and file extensions. And then next is that use Unix path name separator instead of Windows style. So in Unix path, they use forward slash. In Windows style, they use backward slash. So the path should be like this. So images, forward slash, and then the name of the actual image, or the file name of the actual image. So not like with this one. And then fourth is that when your web page loads, it is always going to look at the location you specified in SRC or in source for the image. So ensure that the image resides in the right location, or the user is going to get a broken link. So this is even more crucial when you use a relative path. So that is any path that is relative to the file. So examples. This example is going to look for the images directory in the same level as your HTML page. So you need to ensure your document root doesn't change. So if your directory or your root file changes, or you change the name of that directory, then the user will get a broken link. So the simplest is to always keep the images at the same level or one level down. So absolute paths are not recommended to use because essentially you are hard coding the entire URL. So the URL contains parts to it before the actual path. So here, for example, so like the protocol HTTP and domain name. So the protocol is HTTP and domain name example.com. So whereas relative URLs start with a path, such as this one, the base URL here comes from where your HTML is deployed. So this is easier to maintain. So it will work on a local host or if you switch domain names without requiring any changes. So let's review. For the source attribute, you need to keep in mind that you should not include any spaces in your image path. Make sure your image path matches the capitalization of the actual path. Use Unix path name separator instead of Windows style. And then when your web page loads, it's going to look at the location you specified in source in SRC for the image. And then lastly, absolute paths are not recommended. So you should use relative paths such as this one.